All right. We are recording, not live, because Dan made fun of me for saying that last time, since we're recording. But we're recording another Be the Exception podcast here with Tanner Hodges. Tanner, welcome.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, for sure. Is this the first podcast you've done?
I think I might have done one a long time ago when I was actually good at my sport. But so it's been maybe 8-9 years.
Okay. But that was like back in the day when it was like posted to SoundCloud on a forum randomly.
Where podcasts were like just exploding. Like Tim Ferriss had the only one. That was about it.
Tim Ferriss. Is that podcast still a thing?
Honestly, don't know anymore. Haven't like looked at it in a while.
Yeah. That's a throwback. It was like probably like him and Joe Rogan. Were like
Joe
the
Rogan,
two.
maybe like Ben Greenfield.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Crazy. So Tanner, you've had a pretty unique background in fitness and competing in odd sports. Now you're competing in grid, which at this point in time, is technically an odd sport. It's not mainstream yet. So
I like the odd ones.
Yeah. So we're just going to get into kind of your background. You have a breadth of knowledge on training as well, I think, just from how long you've been in the sport and the different kind of capacities that you've trained in. So maybe we'll dive into kind of some theories and stuff like that. But why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself and how you got started in the fitness slash tricking industry?
All right. So how I got started in tricking.
Yeah.
Pretty much grew up on a farm with not much to do. I saw there was two videos. One was called Friday Night Madness 3. It was from a team up in Canada called Team Ryoku. And it was just a bunch of dudes doing flips and cool things around the gym. And then the other video I saw was from my buddy, Juji Mufu.
Yeah.
So between those two clips, it got me interested. And because the skill level back then wasn't as high as it is now, it looks like something that everybody can do. So I just started going outside and trying stuff.
So those flips look like
Yeah.
you could just do that, because I've never looked at a video of anybody, and I remember Juju Mufu's like one of his first videos in the horse helmet thing.
Well, that is actually like one of his newer videos. He has videos from when he was like 13.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so the level back then was like people did a backflip or an aerial. It wasn't these like 13 hit combos.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
so it was like a few different things that you could go out and probably try. Like most people can probably learn if they just play around with.
Oh, okay.
There's like 8 big moves. You had like a B twist, a backflip, an aerial, 540, cheat 7, maybe like 1 or 2 out the double leg.
Yeah.
And then one more flip or something. But it was very, very basic back in the day when I got started.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit closer to your mic?
Yeah.
Too? I just don't know if it's going to record well.
Hello.
Okay, so you grew up on a farm, and you were just like, you were scrolling through the internet one day?
Yep.
Because this is back in what, like 2008, 9?
Yeah, it had to be like 2008, 9, somewhere in that range. I started doing flips around 15. So I'm 31 now, so 16 years ago.
16 years ago. So 2009 time
Yeah.
frame? Yeah. When like, what was it, Break.com and E-Bombs World were still things?
I have no clue. The only websites I really went to was his forum. So Juji Mufu had a forum and a website
Okay.
called trickstutorials.com.
Okay.
So that was like the only...
Well, but you had to like stumble across this at somehow.
Yeah, I don't know how I did. I have no
okay.
clue. I don't remember. Like at this point, dude, it's been so long.
Yeah.
Then I remember when it really kind of hit me that, hey, this is pretty interesting, cool. It's like when I saw the first people that were good do it in person. We had a couple of people that were up at UTC, drive down to the area that I was at, which was like Bradley County.
What is UTC?
University of Tennessee, Chattanooga.
Oh, okay.
So they drove down, but they were like pretty high level for tricking at that time.
So they drove. So this is like, so you got into it. You started like fucking around in your backyard, and then you stayed on these, because you had told me that you kind of like were active on forums. So you stayed on these forums, and then did you meet these guys from the forums? Okay,
Yep, exactly.
And then they decided to drive down.
Yep.
Or?
So they decided to drive down to come train because they saw like we had some random weird tricks that a lot of people didn't do at the time for some reason.
When you say we, who's we?
So it was like me and one of my friends were the ones that kind of got into it together. He kind of dropped off during college, and I just kept going because I was that weird kid.
So this was you said you found it in 16, right?
Yeah.
And so you started in high school, and did you just trick on your farm, or did you go somewhere?
I tricked on my farm, tricked before school, and then there was a gymnastics facility that opened up right at the end of my senior year. So they had open gym, which is where you can go in and practice stuff.
And that's where you started to
That's where
really
I started
get into
to
it.
get a little bit more into it. And then when those guys came down. That's when I really got into it.
So they came down prior to college, or
Yeah, so maybe
Okay.
like my first year in college. I can't remember exactly.
okay.
But just their skill level was vastly higher. And then when you see it in person versus video, it's very hard to get the perception of what it's like in person if you only see it on video. So that kind of was like a mind blow for me. I was like, oh, God, this is cool.
Okay.
So that's when I started to really push, and I started driving down to Atlanta like once every 3 months. That became once every 2 months. That became once every month. Every
Okay.
couple of weeks, every week. Then I was like, I'm moving.
Okay. So wait, so what was in Atlanta then?
So tricking started, and there's about 3 major cities that it really kind of flourished in the beginning.
Okay.
It was L.A., New York, and Atlanta. So Atlanta is one of the original meccas of tricking.
Really?
Yeah.
And how far away is Bradley from Atlanta?
Like 2 hours, something like that.
Okay,
So
okay.
it's not too far.
Yeah.
But I would drive down, like I said, I started every 3 months, 2 months, 1 month, every week, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
But a lot of the tricks that were getting done at the time were done by people here, and they did a lot of the world's first.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So I didn't know at the time, but I was lucky enough to be grandfathered into kind of the community that was one of the heirs that started it.
Okay.
So
Wow.
then just seeing how they progress the sport and their training methods and ethics towards it, because they all come from like sport karate. So then you
Okay.
have a bunch of guys that are like in their 20s, 30s that have all trained fighting, like traditional and then like actual like sparring and street fights and stuff like that as well, just get into flips and stuff.
Yeah.
And then you see the work ethic that goes into that, and that's very different than I would say that community now, because it's more of a younger generation.
So like, what do you mean by that? Like,
Just the level of respect is different between people and things of that nature, because it was an older generation then that got into it. Now it's like the top level people are like 16.
oh,
They're the
okay.
best in the world. Back then, like,
16-year-olds are the best in the world. Wow. Okay. And back then it was like mid-20s.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. And when you say like, so like, what's the big difference between those two? Like,
There was less like actual like partying and substances involved and things like that. So they were very like, this is our job. We're going to train and get good for this.
Okay.
Now the generation is like, hey, this is fun. We do it for fun. But they still get good. So
okay.
we had that serious mentality of like, we're going to show up. We're going to train for 3 hours. We're going to drill. We're going to condition after.
yeah.
And we're going to keep going every day.
Yeah.
New
Okay.
generation is like, we're going to go to the gym and see what happens. So that's what was that big difference. Is like, it was a job for us.
What do you, so like, which do you feel is like more successful then? Because like, obviously the younger generation is quite a bit more, I don't know if it's more talented, but better.
I would say the internet has a lot to do with that, because back in the day, you didn't have as many people doing things that you could see what they were doing. Now you can see what everyone in the world is doing.
And so
the
that
skill
just
level,
exponentially raised the skill level.
Yep.
So you think if the younger generation applies some of the work ethic and like, they would just be like unbelievably better.
Well, there are the top people are still the top people that, and they still kind of do that.
Okay.
But there's a lot more of the, I would say, middle ground average that kind of have that like more relaxed feeling to it.
Oh, okay.
But their average is a lot better than the average back then.
Got it.
So
Got
it's
it.
just, it's a weird mentality. Like it used to be, everyone was very serious into it. Like it was their job, it was their passion. Like this is what we're doing. We're gonna make it big.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. Now it's like,
Yeah. Or not even just big, but like, because I feel like CrossFit is kind of same kind of boat. When people got into CrossFit, they were like early 20s, mid 20s, kind of late 20s, when it was like in the 2010 to 14 era time frame. And so everybody was like so dedicated towards competing. Like I remember from 2012 to 2016, I took one vacation a year. It was on the 4th of July. And that was all the traveling that I did, really, was just that one vacation. And every other weekend I was there. And then fast forward, 7, 8 years, kids are like, hey, it's the middle of the open, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, what? What is going, like, that was just unheard of, you know? And like, obviously it's not a professional sport at this point in time. So like, you can't be like, no, you're fucking not.
Yeah.
Like, but it's just, so like, that's actually one thing that I've had to try and get better at is like when somebody tells me like, all right, I'm ready to take this serious. It's like, you're ready to take it to your serious. There's a different level of serious that I understand it from.
there's an article somewhere. I think it was written by Travis Mash that talks about the expectations of champions.
Yeah.
And it was like, are you willing to do like 5 hard sessions a week, plus the 3 easy sessions, plus go get body work done
Yeah.
twice a week,
Right.
plus go to red light, plus get 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
So it's like mastering the mundane. So
Yes.
it's like doing all the hard stuff and also all the stuff that makes the hard stuff a lot easier.
Right.
So
right.
you can actually recover and push each session like you're supposed to be able to.
Right. Right. And like a lot of, I think because CrossFit isn't a professional sport, like you have to be realistic with that, those expectations as well. Like,
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you can do 5 hard sessions a week, but you're not going to recover from them, And it's like, but if you're not going to recover from them, you have to be okay with doing 2, maybe 3 easier sessions a week now, and like only 2 hard sessions a week.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like it's interesting because I think when we were coming up in both our respective sports, they were still so new, and like everybody was just so dialed on getting better that you kind of just naturally fell into all of those things. And I actually don't think life was as challenging back then in regards to like monetary like requirements and like living standards, et cetera. So it was actually easier to do a lot of those things. And now I think it's a little bit harder to do that, but also you're not growing up with the sport anymore, so it's going to be a 6-year process before you're even like remotely competitive in something like CrossFit, And so you got to have a way longer like time horizon now than you did back then. Like back then it was like 1 to 2 years, and you're
like top level.
Yeah, it took me 3 years to qualify for regionals and and then I made the games that same year. So it's like, like the time horizon was just exponentially faster. And now it's like, hey, you're going to have a 4-year commitment before you even sniff any of these events.
Oh, God. So terrible.
Yeah, right. So, that was kind of, I don't know if that's been your kind of perspective of things. But kids are even younger, though, and 16 and tricking. So,
yeah. So I think a lot of it is the internet has a big role in it. Like, so once you see something, it's kind of like the 4-minute mile. Once somebody did it, a lot of people can do it. So there was a period where I could count on my hand like the people that could like triple cork, and that's 3 twists off 1 foot with a backflip. Now you can't count it; it's in the hundreds.
Oh, okay.
So it's like there were multiple things of that where you had one person that was able to do this trick for the first time that nobody else thought could be done, and then once that one person does it, it just explodes. Somebody has to be the limit breaker.
Gotcha.
So I grew up in the era where there was a bunch of limit breakers.
Yeah.
Now the limits are so high, it's very, very hard to do that.
Right.
There's only a few people in the world that can actually push those limits versus then, like, you had a lot of people that can kind of push.
Yeah.
If they believe they could.
Yeah.
So that's the big thing now. It's like getting a really, really competitive, like, Murph time, for example, is probably a lot harder now than it was like 10 years ago. So it's very similar. Like, just the level and understanding of the techniques, skills, how to train has just went up so vastly that it's just harder now.
Yeah, right. So it is, but like in CrossFit, it's like you have 20. I mean, there is a little bit, some younger generation, like 21, 22, 23 that got pretty good, pretty fast at the sport. But for the most part, it's like mid to late 20s and even some early 30s that are like really good at the sport.
Yeah.
And like have sustained, success in the sport. But like tricking, you're 16 years old and you're like good at the sport. So like where
Not
like,
just good, you're the best in the world.
Right. So like where does that kind of fall in the like? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Honestly, I couldn't give you an answer. It's just it's either training environment, culture. There's a lot of different things. Like the people that became the best in the world at an early age started off a lot younger. So they started off at like 5, 6, 7.
Wow. Okay.
Just because either their parents like ran karate schools or gymnastics facilities or something, or they were just in a gym at some point.
Okay.
So those are the kids that really pushed and they get to that high level.
Yeah.
So with tricking, I would say there's more of there's that top level. Then there's a really big gap between like what average is and that top level.
Okay.
So that middle ground gap, there's not a lot of people in. So you have people that are really below that average level or at that average level. Then you have the people that are at the top. And that middle ground is kind of that like gray area that not a lot of people are in.
Okay.
So I'm trying to think of how that would kind of relate over to CrossFit.
Yeah. I mean, I think while there is a pretty big gap between like the top 1% games athletes, so like the 0.00001% in the world, right? and like a semifinals athlete, I do think probably the gap is a little bit closer than a tricking. But it's just interesting, like even in gymnastics for the longest time, they were looking for 16 to 18-year-olds, right? Like to go to the Olympics.
Yeah.
And like pretty much once you were over 18, it was like game over. So it's just interesting to see that's also, and it makes sense. It's a very gymnastics biased sport.
Yeah.
Transfer over. But I mean, we're starting to see prolonged success actually from gymnastics athletes now, which is kind of interesting.
Again, I think training methods just evolved so well too.
Yeah.
Because back then it was just go hard.
Yeah, right.
Go hard drill. So one thing I think is different is like now you'll have a lot of people that can hit hard things, but they can't hit it 100% of the time. We were training to hit it every single time we did it.
Yeah.
So we would do 10 reps, 20 reps of that same combo, same trick, same in and out, like understanding what moves we could do into it, what moves we could do out of it, and drill it.
Okay.
If we did it, we were not going to fall. Now there's a level of people that can hit hard stuff, but they can't hit it all the time. So that's, I think, is also the difference of kind of what is now versus what it was then.
So you guys were training more to raise your floor.
Yeah.
And they're training to raise their ceiling.
Yep.
Interesting. Why do you think that? Do you think that's come about because of social media too?
Yeah. Obviously, you got to push hard to get like a following.
Right.
You got to do the dumb stuff, man.
Right. But like, do you think, because like I subscribe to a methodology of like training to raise your floor. I think it works well for performance sports, but it doesn't always necessarily lead to the most flashy things that you can like post on social media, right? But it seems like these kids are like, let me hit this trick, get 500 followers or whatever from it, 1,000 followers from it, and then I don't have to worry about hitting it again because I got a following from, or like a small following. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. So it's very similar. There's a lot of like skipping regressions to get certain tricks and stuff like that. So like before we would have to, let's say if we did a full, we would do like every variation of a full before we went on to the next like double full. So you do a full, you do a full double leg, which is like a pike over.
Okay.
You would do a full round, so a full twist with a round kick or a hook kick, whatever. So you would hit like 10 different variations of fulls before you would go on to the double full. But you would be able to hit those every single time. Now people are going full, double full, triple full. So then they have all this other stuff they need to kind of go back and like get.
And mess around with and like understand. Okay. Interesting.
So, and the background is a little bit different now too. Like back in the day where it was originally started, it started more like martial arts biased. So kicks were very heavy and that was the base. Now people are starting more in that like twisting kind of free running-ish style. So then they have to go back and kind of relearn the kicking, which honestly isn't bad. Like the big thing with tricking is if you can learn to twist, then you can learn to kick. You can combine the two in the air pretty easy.
Okay.
So it's like some of that methodology has changed. So you don't have to just drill all the kicks all the time. If you can learn to twist and then kick basically well, like you're solid.
Yeah, you'll learn it pretty easily.
Pretty fast.
Because it's basically like momentum carries your limb extremities out, right? So the kick will look cleaner.
Yeah.
Eventually.
So if you have enough rotation, like you just got to throw your leg out there and it'll start to look better.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's sweet. So like what? So you moved down to Atlanta. I know that was a little bit of a large tangent.
That was a weird tangent there.
But you moved down to Atlanta and like, you started to see a lot of the work ethic and stuff like that. Is that kind of where you picked up a lot of your training philosophies from? Because you also went and trained with Coffee at Coffee's gym, and we can maybe get into that here shortly. But do you feel like that was kind of the base of your training philosophy and like?
Dude, I would read so much. So I would go on like T Nation. I would go on like Elite FTS. I would go on any article that I could find to make me better.
Okay.
So I was fully bought in from the beginning. Like I was a chunky kid growing up. I weighed like 205 pounds. Like, so obviously tricking, you can't do it at heavy weight, like that heavy. So I had to like lean down. So I had to learn like nutrition principles. I had to learn training principles. I had to learn all this while I was also trying to learn tricking.
Okay.
So that gave me a pretty solid background and understanding, at least in the beginning. But having said that, it's also good to not know what you don't know because if you put limits on what the body can recover from, you're not going to recover from it. So you're able to push a lot harder when you're a little dumb about it.
Yeah. Right.
That makes sense, yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
So there's a lot of that. And honestly, like that was some of the strongest periods I've been in my life. But that was a very 3 to 6 month period because it's not sustainable.
Yeah. So you were experiencing burnout.
Oh yeah.
While you were training.
Oh yeah.
Because it was literally just run your head into a wall.
So when I moved down, I Graduated with an associate's degree from my university that I was at, and I was like, all right, I'm done with school. I want to go pursue this because I'm young. So I moved down with like $1,000 in a duffel bag, and I slept on my buddy's apartment floor for like 6 months.
The good old days.
That's right. But I was in a room with a bunch of high-level people, so it was just a house full of people that were still going for it.
Yeah.
So having that environment, and then like all the hardships I had when I first moved down, so I ended up like fracturing my ankle when I first moved down, and still trying to coach, and still learning how to coach gymnastics because I've never coached gymnastics.
Yeah.
So I'm learning all these new skill sets at one time, and I'm like, all right, I'm doing it, whatever it takes.
Gotcha.
So it was a very fun learning experience, work ethic wise there, and also like I was still training, but just learning what it took to actually have all the other areas in place to train well is probably that like harder work ethic piece I had to learn.
Sorry, say the last part again.
That like the work ethic of having everything else in place so you can train well. So let's say if you don't have your financials well, or like your sleep well, or your housing, like that's going to impact this a lot. So that was like one of the things, is learning how to get all of that settled, just because I did everything on impulse at that time.
Right.
So that I could actually push and train well.
Yeah.
So that was like a big shift of like learning that, like, what does all in mean?
Okay.
So like for me and you, like all in at that time, probably, hey, I'm going to the gym, I'm training hard, I'm like trying to do the best to recover. But if you can go get a job that pays a little bit more so you can get a better mattress to sleep,
makes a world of difference.
it's going to make a world of difference. So my level of all in started to shift around that time because I was just training hard, but everything else was kind of taking a background. And that was a kind of habit that happened for like 6-7 years.
Okay.
So that was like a whoop, boop, boop, boop. There's a wave pattern of me starting to get a little bit of that like push, and then backing off, and then pursuing it too much, and then backing off, trying to get everything else back up. And then so shifting the focus too much back and forth versus like, okay, I need to get everything in place here so this is good. And then what's that maintainable pace here so I can push this? I would kind of go all in here when I was injured here. And then I was good enough to train, then this went to the background. So it's just a fast like shift back and forth so much, and that was probably the hardest thing I had to learn during that time period.
Is like how to balance those two.
How to balance efficiently, I wouldn't say even balance is a good term, just to how to prioritize different things at different times.
Okay. Got it. And so that was kind of the big lesson you learned is prioritization.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So like how do you feel that has transferred into like what you're doing now with Grid?
Good question. So now I do have a family. I do have 2 kids. So trying to learn how to balance that, plus training, plus competing. So this is my first time competing in anything high level in probably like 8 years. Like I've been training at a high level during that time period here and there, but like competing at a high level is vastly different. Again, you need to be able to hit everything there on the spot. I can go in and train and hit it like when I feel good. Competing, I need to be able to hit 100% of the time, 100% of the time. So it's like learning what needs to happen. So that's in place now with all those other like lifestyle factors involved is definitely where that focus is going. And then my daughter had like seizures. So it's like there's a lot of things over that period of the 8 years that I just had to work through mentally for myself. So that put me in a good place to be able to push and train hard again.
Okay. Got it. So, 1 second. Don't worry, we'll edit this out.
What was that?
We'll edit that out.
Oh, okay.
Plug the battery in.
Ah.
The camera. Like an idiot. All right, sorry. So, we're back. So you having to kind of like focus on your family has helped you create a little bit more balance around training now, or?
I would say it doesn't let me be as dumb. Okay. I would get very obsessive to the point it was a detriment. Like pushing way past the point of injury where it would be multiple injuries.
Yeah.
So that's definitely like, I still want to be able to go walk up with my kids. I'm not going to do anything that dumb anymore.
Got it.
Before, I would push hernias back in to keep training. when they were excruciating. I would tape up my wrist if it was fractured and just keep going.
Got it.
I would put on tighter shoes if I had like an ankle issue. I would wear ankle. I would do whatever it took to keep training.
Okay.
Now, if something's a little, I'll back off.
Got it.
Because I know that I think it was a little bit of an insecurity issue too, because I was coming into a community that was already highly rated in tricking, that I had to push to get good.
Right.
Now I already know I'm decently good at a lot of things.
Right.
So I don't have to push as hard. And I know the maintenance level is always going to be there. Mm-hmm. So even if I take a week off, I'm probably honestly going to feel better after taking that week off than if I just try to push through it. Mm-hmm. So it's understanding and maturing in that regard, definitely. I'd say is that biggest thing I learned is like, and the family has helped, is being able to understand like taking a week off isn't that bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to be that done with training. You don't have to push as aggressive as people say you do all the time.
Right.
And you're not going to lose as much as you think.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think, though, that there's something to be said for being aggressive in your training. Yeah.
Well, I think it's a very good thing to go through and learn. Like, there's a period, I think I fractured my ankle. I can't remember the exact period, but I went and hiked up one of the waterfalls with like, 600 steps on crutches.
Amicalola?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did that on crutches.
Sweet.
Because I needed something to train.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of like stupidity I had.
Right.
And what did that lead to? That led to my other Achilles hurting like a bitch for like 3 to 4 days. So that probably wasn't the smartest move.
Right.
But it's, again, you learn that grit. So you are able to do a lot of things that other people wouldn't think they can do because you have that.
Yeah.
So it is very important to go through those hard periods of training, or even like a training camp per se, just to show yourself you're capable of a lot more than you think you are, and your body lies to you a lot. Mm-hmm. So even if you feel like crap, you probably can still do the thing.
Right, right.
Learning how to create the mental shifts and triggers and things like that in training is honestly like one of those things I learned that probably carried over with me the most now.
Okay.
Is being able to create like that psychology behind training.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's one thing that I think a lot of people are kind of missing, is that component of like, almost like you don't understand what hard is. And like, I'm not trying to be like a fucking Billy Badass, right? But like, you know, when you go through things or just force yourself to keep working through an injury until your body is literally like, go fucking fuck yourself, and you can't do anything anymore, it really opens your eyes to like what you are capable of. And I think if you can do that, it does exponentially shorten your career, probably, like more than likely, but it makes you a savage competitor. And like, you're going to be able to go out onto the competition floor and not give a fuck and put forth your best effort on every single one of your attempts. But if you've never pushed yourself to that point, it's going to be very hard for you to be able to elicit your genuine capacity out on the competition floor.
So, for example, I remember one of the big moments that was, there were like a few big moments in my athletic career that kind of reshifted my perspective on it. One was after there was an event called the Red Bull Throwdown, and it was after, I think this, was it the first one or second one? I can't remember, one of those. But I was going to compete, but I ended up fracturing my ankle like 6 months before, so I didn't feel like I was ready to step back on the stage.
Okay.
But so after that event, we're all like sitting around in the parking lot, and one of my roommates at the time, Stephen Rennie, he's literally just tearing into me, being like, then why'd you even move down if you're not man enough to step on the stage?
Wow.
Then I was like, because I fractured my ankle 6 months. He's like, okay, then why are you still here? And he literally just kind of tore into me for 2 hours. The next week, I was doing stuff I've never done before.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just that, like, it's very helpful to have somebody else's belief in you.
Totally. Yeah.
If you don't have it yourself. And then also sometimes people get in just a shitty mind state. It's like you need that little kick of truth to get you out of it.
Right.
So that's why he gave me, was that kick of truth.
Right.
And there was another example again. It was the third Red Bull, I think, that I was actually training for to compete in teams. And that's when I tore my ACL.
Oh, okay.
So during that period, I tore my ACL. I didn't get to compete, but then we hosted a gathering, or that's like a camp for most people in CrossFit. About 3 months after I tore it, I was back to 100% within 3 months from my ACL tear.
Wow.
Because
surgery or no surgery?
No surgery. Just because I was dumb enough to think I could.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, when you start to read so much about training, you'll start putting random limits on yourself that are not true.
Right.
In the long term, maybe. but in the short term, they're not.
Right.
You have to learn how to push past those and just be dumb for a bit and see what your body can actually take, because everyone's going to be slightly different. But I remember training like a fucking savage for that 3-month period.
Yeah.
Like 3-4 sessions a day, like trampoline. That's when I picked up weightlifting, a little bit more coffees.
Okay.
Because I couldn't trick as much. I was still doing tricking. I was still coaching. Like,
Yeah.
I was going to push because I felt like I let my teammates down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's something, again, we talked about that grit. And I think it's like one of my superpowers is I know I have the ability to turn it on to bring the energy to other people in the room. Not everyone has that ability to do that. So when it gets to that point and I see other people are getting frustrated or they're having a hard time trying to get into the zone, I know I have the tools that I can make myself start to produce enough energy for everyone else in the room. So that's like one of the big things I think that's super helpful from going through those hard periods of training is like learning how to get yourself there so that other people can follow. Now, a lot of people I don't think of it that way. They just kind of get themselves there to push. But why? Everyone's in the room with you. Why not have them get better so I get better?
Yeah.
And then it's just a back and forth. And
Right.
that's what I loved about tricking was
Yeah.
being able to feel the energy on the floor of everyone there.
Yeah.
And then
Right.
being able to push and feed and just go.
Yep.
So,
And that's kind of like the mentality that we're trying to bring to our training sessions on Saturdays and like just our training in general is like we're trying to push everybody to succeed, not just the sole individual. Because like you by improving your weakest link, it creates strength up the entire chain after that. And I think that what you're experiencing was very prevalent in that 2010 to 14, 15, 16 era. And I think in like 18, 19, as CrossFit specifically started to fade, that was kind of lost on people, is that community environment and the ability to push each other like through tough times and like really get motivated to train no matter how you're feeling.
I'd say even with weightlifting too, like you would go to weightlifting gyms back then and like you'd see people sharing bars.
Yeah.
How many people share bars now?
Right.
Everyone's like, no, I got my own program.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
just get a bar and like we're gonna do some snatch complex. What do you got? I don't care. We're gonna just build up heavy on this and see what happens.
Yeah.
Like share bars and like get with people and like
Right.
compete but not be an asshole.
Yeah.
So that's like another thing we used to really try to. If somebody was working on something that I could do, I would kind of be a dick and like do it in front of them.
Yeah.
A few times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just to get them angry enough to go. Like,
Right.
I don't care if you hate me if we're all getting better for that split second, then they'll thank me after.
Right. Right.
Because they are secure enough to know that what I'm doing is helping them push to that next level, even though it hurts in the moment to feel insecure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's like that fun part of training for me is like, if it's not your day, make it somebody else's.
Yeah.
And then
That's a good saying.
learning how to, and learning your impact that you can have on the whole group no matter your skill level. So there was another instance that we had a couple people come down that were very, very high level, but they had like tweaked backs or something. But I was over here still hurt, and I was like training hard, doing like push-ups, sit-ups, hollows, whatever. I was still training hard, and they're over there just sitting down because their back was hurt. And I remember they looked over at me and said, "Fuck this," and started training.
Yeah.
So no matter your skill level, you have the ability to push everyone in the room,
Right.
just by your attitude and training.
Yeah.
So that's like another big thing is like I can push the high level people, I can push the low level people, I can push the people right beside me. You can push everyone in the room. Get good at that because that's going to make everyone better, not just you.
Right. Right. Do you feel like that was kind of like your role that you self-selected into inside of your group, or was that kind of like a role that somebody bestowed upon you? Like you talked about your friend was, berating you for 2 hours in a parking lot. Did that help you to kind of understand? Because I think in a community, you have roles, and everybody understands their role inside of a a training group or whatever. It makes for a much more successful and group in general. So was that a self-selected role, or did somebody be like, "Hey, you have the ability to do this. Go and do this"?
I think it just naturally happened.
Yeah.
It was just something I just started doing. Like we would play RC, so that's like where you just give people like different tricks to try to link together. So I was like the dad of the session a lot of the time. So
Okay.
helping people, training people, coaching people after like we're training, trying to push the other people.
Yeah.
And that would be like I was coaching, I was also training, I was also giving people energy. It was just something that I just naturally fell into, I think, just
Yeah.
because I I knew I had the mental tools to push harder than a lot of people at the time, just because a lot of things that happened beforehand, like in my childhood and stuff.
Right. You'd gone through like
Yeah.
you'd gone through shit before you started training.
So I knew how to push and certain triggers to tap into that I knew a lot of people didn't have access to. So a lot of the negative things that happened as a kid, I was able to turn them into positives and being able to tap into. Now, at a certain point, that becomes negative.
Right.
Until you learn how to work through it. But I did have that like superpower of learning how to tap into those emotions, those feelings to turn them into something positive into a session.
Mm-hmm.
And I know not everyone had that same ability. Mm-hmm. So that's where it just kind of naturally fell into place, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I always get curious about that because I feel like when you're in a community, it kind of has to be a natural selection of things. Like, even if you're like, you assign somebody a role, you don't know if they want that role, right? But it, like, when you have a good group of people in a good community all striving for the same thing, the roles kind of like naturally define themselves. And I think once you really start to see like, hey, in order to grow this thing, we need to have somebody doing this, then somebody will step up to the plate who's like already bought into the mission. Then somebody will step up to the plate and be like, I can handle this. Like, I'll take this. I might not enjoy it, but I understand it's for the greater good, and we can start to drive the group further if somebody's in this role, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah. But I mean, to your point, like, yeah, back in the day, like those group dynamics were amazing. Like everybody had a very common goal of like reaching the top, and it seemed from the beginning, like when you grow up in a sport, that goal is very attainable. As the sport gets more popular, it becomes harder and harder and harder, obviously, and so I think you lose that kind of like motivation as a sport matures. So like the average person isn't in there with the same ethics and kind of morals around training as the top athlete is anymore, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm laughing because when I think of that, I also think of when the sports evolve, so do egos. So the bigger a sport is, the bigger people get inflated.
Yeah.
And that's something, luckily, because I was around the OGs, like I didn't have that happen because if you're working hard, you're working hard. It doesn't matter your skill level.
Right.
If you're being an asshole and you're the best, we're going to kick you out of the gym. I don't care.
Yeah.
So we were very like prevalent on be a good person first.
Yep.
That was the number one thing.
Yeah.
We also had another saying like everyone takes a baseball bat to the knee the same.
Yeah.
Because if people like you only for your skill level, what happens if that gets taken away? You can get in a car accident tomorrow, and all of a sudden you can't train anymore.
Right.
Who's going to be there for you?
Yeah.
Might as well have somebody.
Yeah.
So be a good person now.
Yeah.
And like, don't just use that to get what you want. Like, still try to pursue like doing good things for people and pushing that regard, because at some point your ability to train hard will go away for everybody.
Yeah, 100%.
And if that goes and that's the only thing you're known for, you're gone.
Yep. I think a lot of CrossFitters from my era are experiencing that right now, and like just behind my era, because like early to mid 30s, like you start to kind of really phase out of the sport, and they're starting to see like, oh, I don't get attention from this anymore. Like, if I'm not competing year round, like nobody gives a fuck about me. You know, like you can see it with Noah Olson transferring over to High Rocks and doing, endurance stuff now, which your endurance profile in your mid 30s is pretty high, especially if you've trained high power output your entire career. So it's kind of funny to see like this evolution of people and what they're choosing to do now versus to kind of retain that quote unquote status, you know, or just job profile. Like for him, it's sponsorships, right?
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, it's kind of funny to think about that as well.
Because we would have like a lot of high level people that would come down and they'd be like talking shit to some of the like not so good people, and you'd have people just come up and smack them on the back of the head. Be like,
really?
We don't say that. So funny. It's like it's very prevalent. Like, hey, you're gonna be a good person, or you're not gonna be here.
Right.
So that was like, if you go to a gym now and like there's some people you don't like there's so many other gyms around you can go to. You don't have to get along with people. I think that's a skill set too in a group environment, is learning how to get along with people. Even if they say some shit that pisses you off, how do you handle that conflict in the group?
That's true.
Because if me and you have an issue and there's 20 other gyms, all right, I'm just going to go to another gym.
Yeah. Yeah.
Versus then there's one gym in the whole city. Well, I want to do this. You want to do this. How are we going to make this work together?
Yeah. That's true. That's true. I didn't even think of that's a good.
So it's like learning group dynamics is that like we had to get along with each other because there weren't that many gyms that had the access to the facility that we did.
Yeah.
Because we would train before classes, after classes. We had an 8-hour session on Saturdays. Like,
Yeah.
we were going all in all the time, and that was like the only facility in the area at the time that had that.
Right.
So you had to learn to get along with everyone.
Right.
So you couldn't be an asshole.
Yeah.
Because then you would lose access to train.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that because that's one thing. Like, I've had to find a delicate balance with is like when to upset somebody. And
Yep.
like as a coach, like when to upset somebody because you're going to tell them the truth and they're not going to want to hear it, and when to kind of just like be a friend, you know. And it's a super delicate balance now because there's so many other options. Like my girlfriend's gym was in the middle, like pretty much one of the only gyms in Cedar Falls, Iowa, CrossFit gym at the time, and they had a lot of success inside of their gym. But the owner was super hard on people, like he challenged people a lot, and he broke a lot of people by doing that. But he got a lot of success out of people, and there really wasn't another option, especially for a competitive gym in that area. So people just put up with it, and they like put up with the group dynamics, and they put up with quasi abuse. But now, like when my girlfriend, that's some of her fondest memories is that gym and the hardships that you had to go through. And when you do learn the group dynamics and how to push through the group dynamics and figure them out, that group of people becomes your closest friends. And like she could sit down, she'll go back and she'll sit down with any one of those people and they'll hit it off. It's like they never skipped a beat, And that's same thing with my Marine Corps buddies. Like when I sit down with them, it's like we never skip a beat, but we were constantly with each other all the time. And yeah, I think that's definitely a huge component in today's with the just access to all the different training facilities. Somebody upsets you once and you're gone. Yeah. Cancel my membership.
Get me out of here.
I'm going down the street.
I'm going to go somewhere where somebody tells me something I want to hear versus
Right.
what I need to hear.
Yeah.
And like being mature enough to be like, hey, sometimes you just need to hear it. Sometimes they might be wrong, but at least have that openness or willingness to listen to what they say and then use your own tools to see if it's right or not.
Yeah.
Like
right.
go in and like listen to the story that they're saying to you about yourself and then go through and find facts that either verify their story or negate their story.
Right.
Like you have all the tools there. You can figure out like, is your energy actually going the places you say it is or is it not? So
yeah.
You can tell if they're being honest, and 90% of the time, if it hurts, they're probably being honest.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, there's no ability to have that. And even if they're wrong, like there's still something to maintaining that relationship, even if they're wrong.
Yep.
And that's a dynamic that is super hard to like understand, and especially like, man, if you look at professional sports now, it's so hard to have that. To have that ability to like be wrong about things too as a coach, because like you're not perfect. You've got a lot of experience and like you've seen, we talked about this on another podcast. It's like you've seen generations of athletes go through the sport while the athlete lives a generation, and so like you have a lot of experience and a lot of lessons that you can teach people, but doesn't mean that you've lived all the experiences and you have all the knowledge, but you can help guide. And sometimes you're just going to be flat out wrong about what you tell an athlete. But it's your job as a coach to come back and reflect on that, right? But I think there's, to your point, like something to be said about still having a good dynamic with a coach that is wrong. Like you see it I'm a big NBA fan. Like you see it all the time in the NBA. Coaches are like this year's, especially. There's been 2 coaches that got fired literally the week of the playoffs, or like right before the playoffs, and it's just like, man. What went on there that like the relationship couldn't be repaired, or I think sometimes the message gets old, and I think that's a big reason for changes, but to do that, before one of the biggest stages of your sport is pretty crazy. So, and I don't know if that's necessarily like a same example that we're
Yeah.
talking about, but there is a component of like untruth that the coach was giving to the team that started to break that trust. You know?
And it's like you're going to learn a lot by the stories that either other people tell you or the stories you tell yourself. And that could be a whole nother separate conversation. But
Yeah.
there was a lot of things I said about myself that were simply untrue. There's a lot of things other people that told me about myself that were true, but I didn't believe.
Right.
But when you go through and you like verify the facts, hey, what they're saying is right, what I'm saying is wrong. Like that's one of the skills that I learned through later by like going through and some of that stuff I went through as a kid and journaling and going through that process.
Yeah.
Was learning how to identify what stories are true. Like we talked about this before when I was going through like my health optimization phase where, oh, I'm broken. I can never be fixed. I'll never have enough energy. I'm never going to if I keep saying that. I have enough energy that I need to do right now. What needs to change? Is it environment? Is it culture? Is it just the words I'm using about myself?
Yeah.
So it's like going through and understanding all those different avenues and stories is very helpful as well. And I think a lot of people don't take the time to reflect on what they're talking to themselves about, or especially social media now. You have so many people telling you so many different things.
Yeah.
That can be a whole nother shit show.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of like what I see with like kind of like kids in sports right now, or like especially in like CrossFit, so much of it can just be directed back to social media and just like the shit show that it is. Because when we were coming up, it was Facebook, and that was it. Like in regards to social media, Instagram started to get popular, but I mean, I remember if you were posting on a social media platform, it was only your highlights. Only your highlights. Like you were like, I'm proud of this and I'm going to post it on social media. Now it's everything, which is crazy. Like you don't value, if you're doing that, like your value for doing hard work and accomplishing something is so low because you're getting gratification for literally everything that you do at that point in time.
I would challenge that slightly depending on how you're using it again. Because you can also use it as a training log. So I'll go back and like use my Instagram, for example, and like I'll go through and see what I was actually doing at the time.
Yeah.
Just because like for me in tricking, as I watch the clips, I learn what I'm doing wrong or right. And as I make a little like mini edit and I go through and separate the clips, I'm actually analyzing the footage to do that.
For sure.
Then I upload it, and then it's like it's a log for me.
I think for the lay person though, like the average person or like, you know, somebody, but you have like an experienced background with analyzing video. You understand that that's a tool for you, right?
Yeah.
But like somebody who's coming up in the sport now, all they know is, hey, in middle school, I just post all this shit about my life and I get instant gratification for it. I'll just keep doing this through training and not understand the real reasoning why I need to be doing this, or why I actually need to be videoing my stuff. Does that kind of make sense?
Because we had like you were talking about like the highlight reels, we had things called samplers. So it's pretty much you take like 3 to 6 months worth of footage, you cut it into a small like 3 to 6 minute clip, you throw some music on it, and that's it. You put that out to the world. That's how people knew who you were.
Yeah.
So it would take 6 months of work to actually get to a period where people knew your name.
Yeah, right.
So that was like one of the fun things for me is I came up like relatively quick. I was good for a bit, and I kind of dwindled down. Then I got really good for a bit, kind of dwindled down. Then I got really good, but still going to the gatherings where a good majority of the people know your name, and they can tell like you were at like top 10% in your sport for a decent long period of time. And even though I might not be able to show that skill set now, the fact that I was able to hold on to it for so long, it demands respect in itself from like just the environment that was used to create it.
Yeah.
So a lot of people still respect the work that you get or you did to put into that. And I think like having that instant gratification for each clip just kind of throws that away.
For sure.
Because again, you had to work 6 months and like you don't see I was probably training like 30 hours a week.
Right.
For 6 months to make that.
Right.
And now you're just training like 10 hours a week and you get a cool clip.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, shit, you train for 2 hours a day and you can throw a clip together.
Exactly.
You know? Not even, you could go to
like,
your...
You can get famous just for the way you shoot your clips. You don't even have to do anything fancy now.
Right.
But that's also a skill set. But it's so cool. But
But I think that's that shift into like you're doing it more for the clip rather than like the appreciation is the clip.
Yeah.
Right? The appreciation isn't the 6 months of work that went into the clip. And that's where I think our generation learned some good ethics from is like we value the work. We don't necessarily value the outcome.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. But now I think that has kind of flipped, and it's like a lot of people value the outcome now versus the work that goes into it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, tell us about Coffee's gym now.
Oh, God. Jesus.
Tell us who Coffee is first.
So Coffee was an old school weightlifting coach back in, where was his gym at? Like Marietta-ish area. He took some people over to the Olympics. I can't remember the years exactly, but it was women's team or part of the women's group there.
Okay.
So that's where I learned weightlifting from. So again, kind of like tricking, like I saw some videos of Cal Strength, like Dave Spitz teaching how to clean, how to snatch. Looked up weightlifting gyms around and found Coffee's. So I go in there and just trying to mess around. I was already strong at squatting just from like training for sport and stuff, but like didn't really know how to clean, didn't really know how to snatch. So he would have this little chair in the corner over there. He would have like a bunch of old school weightlifting magazines just kind of sitting around him all the time. He would be asleep in the chair. He would do a couple of lifts. He would kind of wake up, watch you for a second, fall back asleep, do a couple. He would be like, all right, come here, bud. And then he would just like give you a few cues, give you something to work on. He would kind of just doze back off. And like, I was not paying him to coach. He wanted to see people in his gym get better just because he cared for the sport.
Yeah.
So that was like one of the really cool things about that area is like when you see people working hard, you just want to help them. So if you come in there and you're snatching and you're like, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just snatching for like 2 hours. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And he would just see like technical things and like, hey, try this. Hey, try that. Hey, do this.
Right.
Do this after you snatch.
Yeah.
So he would help me out there, and you would have a bunch of just different people there. So a lot of the weightlifting gyms around now all branched off of Coffees. You have like Andy Coggins, you have like Robert Hall, you have Ed Baker, you have all these people, and they all came from that same central location. And again, I think that just that culture of Coffees was not necessarily the nicest facility, just you knew you were there for a reason, and that reason was to work hard. So it's like, again, having that understanding of this place is for this. It doesn't have to look pretty, but everyone's here for that same reason. And it's kind of nice when the facility isn't the best because you know the people that are there for that reason.
Yeah. It's like it's bringing back to kind of like old school CrossFit when you walk into a place and you're like, oh, work gets done here. Like you just know.
Like I was squatting in a squat stand.
Yeah.
I didn't have a rack.
Yeah.
It was a squat stand.
Right.
It was 2 posts poking up out of the floor. But I did have a Laco bars and Laco plates from like the 50s.
Yeah.
So it was super nice.
Right. But yeah, I never knew. Atlanta honestly has a very crazy fitness culture. Because there's a lot that has come from in the Atlanta area that you don't really know until you're living in it, if that makes sense. Like even a lot of the facilities around here and a lot of the people here are connected to this kind of one Gold's Gym that is shut down in the area, but it branched out a ton of people in the fitness industry from this area. But yeah, Coffee is another one that kind of just like drove, a lot of culture in weightlifting and a lot of people's continued success in kind of the industry, if that makes sense. So, and it's interesting to be in it or like, meet people that have trained with him because there's just the amount of respect that they have for them is like exponential.
Oh yeah.
Because he was just like a genuine like human being that cared so much about training.
Yes. He was just like, if you were there to learn, he was willing to teach.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like, he didn't, like there's times like I didn't pay my fee for the month. He'd be like, all right, come on.
Yeah.
He just didn't care. Like if you're working hard, he wants you there.
Right.
Again, I think it's the understanding the impact that an individual can have on the atmosphere. If like you're working hard, it's going to make other people work hard.
Yep.
If you're a good person, other people are going to want to be there. Like,
Yeah.
So everyone's just there to push. And I love his quote. What is it? Train like hell, you'll get there.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
again, you gotta learn how far you can push your body so that you know what you can actually go to and like when to dial back.
Yeah. Yeah. Your body has to quit on you. Your mind can't quit on you. And once you get to that point, you're going to be a competitor. But yeah, and then somebody else told me like with Coffee, it was like, he's forgotten more about training than most people will ever learn in their lifetime.
Yeah. And he made it super simple. That's the thing is like when he would tell you, it wasn't this like big drawn out like explanation. It'd be like, here, try this.
Yeah.
here, stand on this and try this with this line.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or like, how far can you broad jump? All right, start working on that. It was like just very small things. And you're like, you don't realize the 10 years of experience that just went into the answer he gave you.
Right.
Because he was just over there sleeping in the chair and peeking every now and again. It was such a cool area, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So you learned a lot from him, and then what happened after Coffee's Gym and like tricking and stuff like that? Like, when did you stop tricking and weightlifting? I guess you never stopped weightlifting, but like...
So actually, this is the first period where I've actually pushed weightlifting like 8 years, maybe the past year and a half.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so like tricking was a little bit easier to kind of go into. Like, it doesn't take as much... Because I've done it so long, it didn't take as much maintenance to get back to the levels I was. Now, pushing to the high level, yeah. But getting back to a respectable level, it didn't take too much effort and time. Weightlifting for me, I was like, I've always had a strong squat and things like that, but actual timing and stuff took a while for me to understand. Mm-hmm. I'm a very, very slow learner. So I have to put a lot of hours in certain things just to feel, and I can't tell my body what to do. My body has to feel it, so I get it.
Okay.
So I need to put in enough reps where my body is feeling the cue that I'm trying to give it.
Okay.
So when I'm doing things like that, and weightlifting, if I haven't done it for like, I didn't do it 2 years. So when I would go back into it, it just felt god awful. And not getting a lot of ROI on it. I'm like, why am I doing it?
Yeah.
Then you guys came back into the gym and I saw you guys lifting heavy. And I was like, I want to lift heavy.
Yeah.
So that's when I started weightlifting again.
Okay.
Like really trying to push a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So I stopped really tricking when I had the ACL surgery. So I trained on a torn ACL for about 3.5 years.
Okay.
It just got to a point where I could not keep up the strength and conditioning that I needed to, along with the coaching, because I was coaching competitive gymnastics, along with the skill work. So I just could not keep everything up where my knee was stable enough to push hard. So it would be every couple of weeks or months, I would hit it weird, my knee would log up, and I couldn't like walk for a couple months or a couple weeks. So it just got to the point where I finally just had the surgery, and then during that period, that's when I had my daughter and met my wife and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So it was just it was like ACL surgery. Then I tore my bicep when my wife was pregnant.
Oh, wow.
And then I had my kid. Then 7 months later, my kid started having seizures, and we had to figure that out.
Yeah.
So then we figured that out by like 2 years. Then COVID happened. So I went from coaching gymnastics, and I just kind of like did private lessons here and there for a bit on that. And then I got into like personal training and fitness as like the main job, even though I've been kind of doing that on and off for a little bit.
Right.
Then from there, I tried to go to like private sectors and push back into the gymnastics world, which took a lot more time and effort than I wanted it to, which took training away. And now I'm finally back at the point where enough of life is set back up and my body's healthy enough that I can actually push again.
Okay.
Now, pushing again for me is like I've been at a maintenance level for probably the past like 5 years. Like I've been able to do random skills here and there. I'll go through a period where I have about 3 to 6 months where I can kind of get back to something, and then like something would happen between life.
Okay.
Now it's been a period of like 2 years where there's been some things, but it's not been drastic.
Yeah.
So I have the ability to push for the first time in like 8 years again. So that's why the skill level on certain things is going up, like weightlifting, for example, is starting to rise again. Tricking and things of that nature will come back fast, so I don't need to put that much energy into it. But it is harder to get to a gym for that because they're further away and I have family, so doing like an hour of that would take like 3 hours of total time out of the day.
Yeah.
So
yeah. It's just not
the
worth it.
ROI isn't there.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. And so now you feel like you have a better grasp on like being able to understand your body and almost be more realistic with your body because you have other responsibilities and
I would say realistic's not a great word because I still push probably a lot more than I should, but I also acknowledge the warning signs when they're there, and I know the time period that I can actually be a little dumb before I need to pull away.
Yeah.
So I think that's that big thing is like I don't need to get emotionally ramped up every single session because I can. And I can push my body too hard, too far, too long. Maybe like 1 or 2 really hard emotional sessions a week, like where I have to actually
Tap into something
physically into it.
Yeah.
That's all I need. If I have to start doing more than that, my body gets burned out.
Yeah. Okay.
But I can.
Yeah. Right.
So it's like, again, learning some of those things to help. I think, honestly, the psychology behind training is just better now.
Yeah, right.
Like, I'm not as insecure as I used to be.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of cool shit. I know I've done a lot of cool shit. I've helped a lot of other people do cool shit, so I don't have to push as hard to try to prove something.
Yeah.
I already know I'm good.
Right.
It's just allowing myself to express I'm good now.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
Now, there's definitely shit I suck at. I'm not trying to be like I'm the best. There's some shit I'm working on.
Right.
But I was very high level at a lot of different things for different periods of time. So I know all the traits that are required to get to a high level are still there.
Yeah. Right.
So it's just allowing myself to do that.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. Once you kind of build that foundation and almost like have that period where you kind of like have to take a step back, you have to get your life in order.
Yep.
It really kind of puts things into perspective a little bit more, and like you're like, and then you have that comeback period. You're like, okay, this is still here. Like if I need to, I can go and pull that out again. But I also understand the emotional toll and like the effort that is needed to do that. And to keep my life in order, I can't go there all the time. Yeah. Because, like, you can, I mean, if you have somebody that can go there, they'll ruin their life to go there. And, like, you'll have a lot of success and you'll be at a high level like yourself. But you're going to be fucking broken and burnt out and broke at the end of it, you know?
That's the thing I think I've matured on the most is I knew I could go there. I knew I could push.
Yeah.
And I would keep going there and keep pushing.
Right.
And almost intentionally create bad situations in my life to draw from.
Right.
For multiple years.
Yeah.
So I think that's where it's like really leveled out now is like, I don't have to go create a bad situation. Like, I don't really need those bad triggers anymore as I can use like just the love of my fucking family to pull from now. It doesn't have to be these negative things. You can enjoy training. You can have fun with training. Like right now when I go in and I start getting excited, you'll see me smile. When it starts getting hard, I'll start smiling because there's a period where I didn't really trust my body enough to actually send it. Now I'm trusting my body.
Oh, okay.
Now I'm having fun.
Yeah.
When I have fun, it's over.
Yeah.
We're having a good time. Like,
yeah.
And when you're having fun, you don't feel this need to push further than you have to. So it's like if it's feeling good, I can send it. I don't have to worry about my body getting hurt or injured or tweaked. I don't have to worry about anything like that. I can just send it.
Yeah.
And enjoy that moment and then allow other people to be in that moment too.
Yeah.
So,
that's cool. Sweet. We're at like an hour here. You want to end it on that?
I guess, man.
Okay.
We kind of went all over the place with that. It was kind of weird, but
yeah, we'll see what happens.
All right, there we go.
I think there's like a lot of random good nuggets in there.
Yeah.
That hopefully people can pull out. So
maybe just watch the highlights of that one, not the full podcast.
just AI clips. This
AI
one.
clips. There you go.
How do people find you on Instagram?
Don't. No, I'm kidding.
Fair.
My name is like, what is it on there?
It's like TB_Hodges.
TB_Hodge or something like that. It's private.
Yeah.
So I'll let you in if I know you.
Or you can follow the Atlanta Wild and see clips of Tanner.
There we go. That's another good one.
Or Grid League this year.
Yeah, I need to actually just make like an athlete page versus like just posting everything like that.
Yeah.
I'll probably do that soon.
Sweet. Right on. Well, thanks for listening, guys. Please like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Yes, sir.